Hey everyone, welcome back to Socio Simplified, your go-to channel for breaking down sociology in the simplest way possible. Today, we're diving deep into education and gendered achievement, looking at how boys and girls perform differently in schools, and why these patterns have shifted so dramatically over the years. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of the key studies, concepts, and debates you need for your exams. So, grab your notes, and let's get started. For decades, girls were seen as underachievers in education. But from the late 20th century onwards, that story flipped. Today, girls often outperform boys. Sociologists like Mitsos and Browne point out that this transition isn't random, it's the result of big social changes. One of the biggest factors here is the changing expectations and attitudes of girls. Sue Sharpe's classic study of working-class girls in the 1970s is a brilliant example. Back then, girls often prioritized love, marriage, and family over education. But by the 1990s, things had dramatically changed. Girls now valued careers, independence, and ambition. They were more assertive, confident, and ready to challenge traditional roles. And this wasn't just about the girls themselves. Their parents and schools began reflecting these changing values too, encouraging daughters to aim higher academically. Sociologists Francis and Skelton add that for too long, research only focused on boys' underachievement, ignoring the massive progress made by girls. They argue we need to recognize these wider social changes as key drivers in the story of gender and education. Of course, you can't explain this shift without mentioning the women's movement and feminism. The 1960s and 70s were periods of intense social activism, with feminists campaigning for equality in both education and the labor market. Mitsos and Browne point out that these movements, alongside legal reforms like the Equal Pay Act and Sex Discrimination Act, gave women greater opportunities. Importantly, they also raised self-esteem and expectations among young girls. Francis and Skelton remind us that many girls today don't just see education as a temporary stop before marriage. Instead, they view their careers as part of their personal identity and as a source of long-term fulfillment. Another crucial factor is the changing labor market. The decline of heavy industries, like coal mining and steel, and the rise of the service sector have opened up opportunities for women. Think teaching, nursing, finance, customer service, IT, fields where qualifications are essential. This economic shift has encouraged girls to aim higher and pursue degrees, seeing education as the gateway to well-paid and independent futures. Now let's bring in Ulrich Beck and his idea of the risk society. He argued that modern life is much less predictable than before. People switch jobs more often, retrain, and face economic uncertainty. In this climate, women in particular are taking control, focusing on education and careers as ways to secure financial independence. So, rather than relying on traditional roles, many women are actively shaping their futures through qualifications and professional ambition. But while girls surged ahead, boys started to fall behind. By the 1990s, working-class boys from low-income families became the lowest-performing group across ethnicity, class, and gender. So, what explains this? First, let's look at the construction of masculinity. Carolyn Jackson studied 13 to 14-year-olds and found that many boys adopted what she called laddish behaviour. This meant acting tough, disruptive, and competitive, while avoiding academic work. Why? Because school success was seen as uncool and even feminine. For these boys, maintaining a reputation of toughness and masculinity was more important than grades. Jackson also highlights another issue, the pressure to succeed. Many boys feared academic failure, so they acted out to protect their self-worth. Basically, it's easier to say I didn't try than admit you tried and failed. In this way, laddishness became a coping strategy, avoiding the embarrassment of failure while maintaining social status. John MacInnes goes further, arguing that masculinity itself has always been in crisis. Over the past 25 years, unskilled and semi-skilled manual jobs, once the backbone of working-class male identity, have declined. Meanwhile, the new jobs in the service sector often require skills traditionally seen as feminine, like communication and sensitivity. In response, some working-class boys doubled down on laddish behaviour in schools to prove their masculinity, even if it meant sacrificing academic achievement. Finally, let's not forget aspirations. Research by Rampino and Taylor shows that girls tend to have a positive attitude towards continuing education beyond age 16, while boys lag behind. By the age of 12 or 13, girls already had clearer ambitions for university, while many boys were less focused. Interestingly, girls were also more aware of economic downturns, and recognized that education was their best safety net in tough times. So, to sum it up, social changes, feminism, labor market shifts, and individualization have helped girls thrive in education, while boys struggle with changing identities, laddish cultures, and economic uncertainty. This debate is central to understanding education in sociology, and it's guaranteed to come up in your exams. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below with which theory or study you found most interesting. And as always, stay tuned to Socio Simplified for more exam-focused sociology content made easy.